本日は L ウーマンインソサエティ大阪にご来場いただき誠にありがとうございます。ご来場の皆様にご案内申し上げます。会場内のお席は自由席となっております。前方よりお詰めになりお座りくださいますようお願いいたします。また本日のプログラムは完全入れ替え制となります。あらかじめご了承ください。またイベント会場内のお写真はご自由にお楽しみいただけますが、ステージの撮影、録音はご遠慮いただきますようお願いいたします。なお、携帯電話はマナーモードへの設定をお願いいたします。入り口でお配りしている同時通訳レシーバーは1チャンネルが日本語、2チャンネルが英語となっております。皆様チャンネルを合わせていただきご利用ください。なお、使用方法がわからない方は会場内のスタッフにお声掛けください。本日の模様は L 本誌および L オンラインなどのメディアに掲載を予定しております。あらかじめご了承ください。また L ジャパンのインスタグラムに行きますと 30th アニバーサリーのフェイスフィルターがもらえます。ぜひ皆さん L ジャパンインスタグラムで入手してください。L ジャポンプレゼンツ IT 界のダイバーシティ&インクルージョンを女性がリードするの開演はまもなく14時30分を予定しております。それまではお席にて今しばらくお待ちください。皆さんこんにちは。本日は L ウーマンインソサエティ大阪にご来場いただき誠にありがとうございます。働く女性のためのイベント L ウーマンインソサエティは大阪での開催は今回が初めてとなります。皆さんが日々自分らしく、そして楽しく輝けるためのヒントになるようなコンテンツを盛りだくさんでお届けしてまいります。どうぞ最後までお楽しみください。さあ、そんな L ウーマンインソサエティ2019年のテーマはこちら、ニューエラーニューワールド、新時代の女性を生きる。働き方改革がスタートした今年、令和という新しい時代の幕が開けました。個人の幸せが尊重されワクワクするキャリアとは一体どんなものなんでしょうか。今日はこれからの働き方を皆さんと一緒に考えていきたいと思います。申し遅れましたが、私は本日司会進行を務めます立花智子と申します。どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。さあ、それでは早速進めてまいりましょう。こちらのステージでは IT 界のダイバーシティ&インクルージョンを女性がリードするをテーマに、ウーバーとフェイスブックという IT 業界だけでなく世界の経済を牽引する2つの企業でダイバーシティとインクルージョン、つまり 多様な人と働き方を受け入れる政策の推進を担当する2人の女性が出会う奇跡的なセッションが実現いたしました。ファシリテーターは野村総研を経てコンサルタント企業アイディールリーダーズの取締役を務め、著書パーパスマネージメントでも有名な丹羽真理さんがご担当されます。さあ、それではここからは丹羽さんにバトンタッチをさせていただきます。では早速ご登壇いただきましょう。皆様拍手でお迎えください。丹羽真理さんです。どうぞ。こんにちは。それでは丹羽さん、どうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
はい、よろしくお願いいたします。皆さんこんにちは。アイディールリーダーズの丹羽と申します。本日、このセッションのファシリテーターを務めさせていただきます。最初にちょっと私の自己紹介なんですけれども、今アイディールリーダーズというコンサルティング会社で、チーフハピネスオフィサー CHO という役職を、担当しております。で、普段はですね、弊社では2つの事業を行っておりまして、1つ目がエグゼクティブコーチングといって、経営者の方とかビジネスリーダーの方を対象にしたコーチングを、提供しています。で、もう一つは、組織変革のコンサルティングなんですけれども、例えば会社の中で新しくミッションとかビジョンとかパーパスと私たち呼んでるんですけども、そういったものを見直したいっていう時にお手伝いすることが多かったりします。あとはですね、会社の風土を変えていきたいっていうテーマも多くて、例えばどうしたら社員がもっと生き生きするのかとか、どんな会社を作ったらもっと社員がイノベーティブになるのか、そんなようなテーマでコンサルティングのサービスを提供することが多くございます。で、先ほどちょっとご紹介いただいたんですけれども、昨年の8月に、本を出版しまして、パーパスマネジメント、社員の幸せを大切にする経営というテーマで出しました。なので、もし皆さんの中でどうしたら会社で社員がハッピーになれるのかとか、どうしたら自分は、幸せに働けるのか、そんなようなことにご関心がある方がいらっしゃいましたら手に取っていただければと思います。ということで、私の自己紹介は以上となりますが、今日はですね、圧倒的男性社会というふうに言われている IT 業界ですね、こちらの世界的トップ企業であるウーバーとフェイスブックの、ダイバーシティとインクルージョンを推し進めている女性のリーダーお二方とともに、より多様な働き方や人材がどう企業や社会の幸福に、貢献するのか、その可能性についてお話ししていきたいと思います。では早速ですがお招きすることにいたしましょう。ウーバーから、ボーヤン・リーさん、フェイスブックからミシェル・クロナンさんです。どうぞ。はい、ありがとうございます。ではですね、早速まずはお二人に自己紹介をしていただければと思います。お仕事の内容ですねをぜひ教えてください。じゃあ、ボーさんから。
Hello, it's wonderful to be here today with you. My name is Young Lee, and I am the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer for Uber Technologies. And I like to describe my role as someone who facilitates people being able to treat each other with respect, with dignity, and seeing people beyond the biases that they have, and also creating systems that allow for more equitability in how people are developed and become leaders.
Hi everyone, lovely to see you and thank you for coming. My name is Michelle Cronin and I lead diversity and inclusion efforts for Facebook here in Asia Pacific. A little bit around what diversity and inclusion means for Facebook as a company. One of the things that we consistently talk about is this concept of cognitive diversity. And really what that means is all of us are born with certain characteristics. Some you can see, some you can't. We've made different choices in our lives, and we've had different experiences, which means that we all think differently. So if we're going to be building a product that reaches 2.7 billion people, we need a lot of ideas and a lot of diversity in those ideas. And that's why a role like mine exists.
ありがとうございます。 2人は IT 業界で活躍されているということなんですけれども、この IT 業界ですね、本当に男性社会ですよね。スライド映りますかね。アンケートで、はい、出るかな。ネット調査で今年のアンケート、こちらですねがちょっと一つご紹介したいんですけれども、こちら就職を希望する大学生と、IT 業界で働く女性ですかね。大学生だと 62% が就職活動時のジェンダーバイアスが女性の IT 業界進出を難しくしているというふうに答えています。これについてはお二人はどういうふうにお考えでしょうか。王さんいかがでしょうか。
I think that the people who responded, that 62%, I think that they're smart to realize that there probably is bias. Frankly, in any industry, whether it is in technology or it's financial services or consumer goods, you're going to find bias in the recruiting process. You're going to find bias in the organizations as well. And the reason being, it's not simply that one industry is much worse than another industry, but it's that companies have inclusion problems because society has inclusion problems, right? And companies are no more than reflections of what exists in society. So if, in a country like Japan, we know that there's gender bias in society, and so you're going to see that. I think to be aware of it and to know what you can do to try to break some of those biases, I think is very important. Also, of course, obviously, an individual woman herself can't fix everything, right? If there are entrenched biases, a single person won't be able to change it, but that is the reason why people like myself, people like Michelle, that technology companies are building these functions and are building these roles because they want to do better. They actually want to do better than what is happening in society. And as Michelle said, her technology company that touches 2.6 billion customers, and Uber in a similar capacity. We have 3 million driver partners around the world and couriers. We have hundreds of millions of customers. We're serving the most diverse consumer population that we can imagine, and we have to reflect that diversity in our organizations. And so while we're not perfect, we're trying to change that.
Yeah, and just to second some of what Bo said, we do, and we're very aware that this bias does exist. And so what a lot of our companies do is when employees come through the door, it's really one of the first things we talk about. In fact, all new hires in Asia Pacific come to Singapore for their onboarding, and on their very first day I meet them and I talk them through a little bit about what does diversity and inclusion mean. And then beyond that, they go on to see and experience bias through some of our courses. And not only how do I experience it, but when I see it, what can I do about it? And that's the really important thing. It's moving to action. And a lot of companies, including Facebook, as well as Google, have open sourced their managing bias or unconscious bias trainings. And that's because we're aware that this is definitely something that exists. It's not something we can get rid of, but we can increase awareness so that when people start to see it in the workplace or start to see it in resumes or start to see it in the way that they're screening candidates, they can make some changes.
ありがとうございます。このようにやっぱりバイアスがね、どこまでまだまだあるかなっていうふうなこの業界だと思うんですけれども、女性が活躍するチャンスっていうのはどこにあるのかなというふうに思っていまして、それについてお伺いしたいんですけれども、特にですね、女性が進出したことによって改善したっていうようなエピソードですとかことがあればぜひシェアしてください。
So great question. If you look at the diversity figures or the female figures for Facebook as a company, you'll see overall globally we've grown from 31 to 36.9% females over a 5-year period, which is quite significant considering how fast the company is growing. In addition to that, if you look at senior women in leadership, that number has moved from 23 to 32.6%. It's a very big jump in the same amount of time globally, yes. And this has been a combination of a few things. We try to find really strong female talents, and then once we find it, we want to grow and keep that talent. And part of that grow and keep strategy is why you've seen the senior females increasing over time. So it's not that we just hire people in at the most senior positions, but we grow and keep the fantastic talent that we have. So I think that a lot of our companies in the technology space are really making conscious and consistent efforts to find, grow, and keep diverse talent. And when we're talking about diverse talent in this particular case, we are talking about women.
Yeah, you know, similarly, I think that for Uber, you know, our numbers are quite similar, and because there's been this very intentional, intention to diversify our leadership, diversify our workforce, you know, I think that is so important. And the thing I think that's really key around careers in technology is to realize that in this tech sector, not every job is that of a computer engineer. Right? People think, oh, you know, Facebook, Uber, Google, all those companies, I have to get a computer engineering degree in order to work there. But the thing is that, at least for Uber, only about a third of our jobs are actually computer science related. 2/3 of our jobs are in operations, marketing, insurance, human resources. You know, we have the full gamut of roles, and those jobs and those careers, you don't see the kind of gender-based segregation that you do see in like the computer science spaces, right? And so I would encourage women to think, if you want to get into the tech sector, don't eliminate yourself simply because you don't have that computer science background. So that's one thing I would really say about women in tech. Like, you can have a huge impact, and I'll actually share a story from Uber. We have a commitment to be the safest platform for all of our customers. So meaning, if you engage with Uber, whether it is on our rides business or even on Uber Eats as well, we want you to know that like we are the safest platform. And actually, the 3 of the top leaders within our safety business are actually all women. And I think that this was a very intentional choice by our leadership, because we know that when we move through the world, every woman in this room, every woman out there, we think about our safety, whether it's when we walk down on a sidewalk, when we get into a taxi, when we travel abroad, safety is something every woman thinks about. And so we knew that if we put women as leaders in our safety business, they will have that perspective that no man can possibly appreciate, right? So we need to have that diversity. To your point, you said diversity of cognitive diversity, and women have very different cognitive brains versus men, and so we wanted to have that intentional diversity in our leadership.
なるほど。ウーバーでは確か日本でウーバーイーツリードしている方も女性だっていうふうにお伺いしたんですけれども、その方っていうのはやっぱり女性だからの視点を生かして活躍されてるんですかね。
Yeah, absolutely. So I think some of you may have seen her actually give a little mini speech. Our head of Japan Uber Eats is Yukiko. And while we didn't necessarily hire her because she was a woman, I think that being a female, being a working mother as well, having a small child, brings such a value to the job that she does, because we know something like Uber Eats is an incredible platform for working families, right? I have 2 young children myself. I have an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I cannot tell you how many times when I'm home, I finish my workday, I get home, and then my kids are like, "We're hungry." and if you don't get food onto a table in 15 minutes or less, or 30 minutes or less, the children are going to have a tantrum. And there's so many nights when I rely on food delivery, right? And so that's like Uber Eats is a big part of me as a working parent. And having a working parent as a leader brings that perspective when we think about how are we going to run the business, how are we going to reach consumers. It's so important. And so we were really lucky to find Yukiko and to have that female leadership here in Japan.
なるほど。 本当にお二人のお話をお伺いしていると、もう IT 業界でね女性が活躍するチャンスってまだまだあるんだなって、エンジニアとかねだけじゃないんだよっていう話もすごく印象的でしたし、今みたいに女性ならではの視点を生かしてサービスを改善していくことができるっていう話もすごくなんていうか勇気をもらえたなというふうに感じました。でちょっとお二人のお話もお伺いしたいんですけれども、この中でですねお二人自身っていうのはどうやってキャリアアップされてきたんでしょうか。アジア人の女性の文化的視点ですとか、社会的立場を踏まえて働く女性をエンパワーするようなアドバイスをいただければと思います。
Okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself because I think it's important to understand my career choices. I was born in Ireland, but I grew up in South Africa. So for my entire school life, from the age of 2 to 18, I was in Johannesburg. And it was during the time of apartheid, which means there was segregation between blacks and whites. And I think from a very young age, that made me realize that there wasn't equality in this world. I didn't, especially in the younger years, I didn't have the language for it. But as I grew older, I started to get the language for it. And that meant when I first started in the technology industry 16 years ago, back in 2003 in Google in Dublin, I moved into a sales role, and probably like many of you here, I was like, I don't know what this is. I mean, this is a job for engineers. It's not really a job for me, but let me see what it is. And it was through that exploring and giving it a chance that I realized that actually there are so many other jobs out there within the technology industry that don't require a computer science degree. Because I didn't have that. I majored in English and psychology. And so another thing that happened to me throughout those years is when I was still living in Ireland, I used to volunteer on a helpline for women experiencing domestic violence. And through this work on the helpline, I got confirmed time and time again that we're not living in a just or equal world. And so when I moved to Singapore, I felt like there was something missing in my career. And that's when I started to creep closer and closer to the diversity and inclusion space. Honestly, I had no idea you could have a career in something called diversity and inclusion. And so when I first heard that the job existed, I was like, okay, now I got to make steps towards that. So one of the really good pieces of advice I got from a manager quite early on in my career is that you need to treat your career like a project or a presentation. You need deadlines, you need a communication plan, you need to map your stakeholders, and you need to start thinking about this. So when I saw that that role existed, that's what I started to do. I got it into my goals, so my manager was aware, and I started to make moves towards it in terms of working with that team, making sure that I got the right skills and experience. And then for the last 3 years now, I've been doing this role full time, previously in Google and now at Facebook. And my piece of advice to anyone thinking about that move or any kind of move is get it in writing, and also say it out loud. You have to say it to your manager. You have to say it to all of those stakeholders who may not be your managers. They could be a mentor, they could be a sponsor. But the more people you tell and the more connected you make it, things will happen.
You know, I love Michelle's story so much because it shows that like careers are not linear. Right? It shows that, like, you know, you said you started in sales, right, in technology, and now you're in diversity and inclusion. And I think this is such a good message for young women in particular, but anybody really, is that don't assume that what you are now is what you will be in the future, right? And if you are, you know, 24 or 25 or even 30 or 35, and you're like, I still don't know what I'm doing, that's actually like completely okay. You know, finding that path and being kind to yourself, and, you know, giving yourself the space to really explore what is of interest to you. I had a slightly different career path. So first, a little background about myself. I think we both are like people who have immigrated and lived kind of all over the place. But, as you can sort of tell by my name, so I am Korean by birth. I was born in South Korea. And then when I was about 2.5 years old, my family immigrated to the United States. And so that's where I was educated, and that's where I still live today. I'm based out of New York City. But it was really interesting, growing up in the United States, being of Korean descent, I was a racial minority. Even now, like back in the 1970s when my family first immigrated, the population of people from Asia was maybe 2% of the US population. It's now about 6%, right? So still a very small fraction. And so I was a racial minority, and I also was a woman, and my family grew up with a lot of poverty because we were immigrants as well. And I remember being quite young and my father saying to me, 'cause I went through the very typical immigrant experience. My father said to me at one point, he says, never forget, you could sound like them, you can act like them, you can dress like them, you can be like them, but never forget that the first thing they will see is this face. And they're gonna make a lot of assumptions about you based on this face. And so he goes, don't allow any of that, any of the things that they tell you you're supposed to be, don't allow any of that to impact what you really are and how you navigate this world. And that was such an important message from my father, like when I was like only about 10 or 11 years old, because it really prepared me for some of the challenges that would exist within my career. And so when I actually graduated, so I studied economics and psychology, and when I started my career, I actually started off nowhere near human resources or D&I. I actually started off as a management consultant. And I did that for about 4 years, and I went back to school to get my MBA. And it was actually when, and this was almost 20 years ago, when I was getting my MBA that I realized that I had to do this work of diversity and inclusion. And 20 years ago, there was no diversity and inclusion in companies. But the main thing that when I was getting my MBA, I was 26 years old. I was a woman with a funny name in America. Young Lee is very funny in America. I was young in so many different ways. I was very different from the typical MBA student. And I realized at some point I didn't like the education I was getting, and I went to a very good business school. I realized at one point the reason why I didn't like my education and the reason why I didn't like that experience I was having was because I was essentially being taught in business school how to be a 45-year-old white man. Like everything that they were teaching me, everything that I was learning about, like how to be a leader, how to be strategic, I was being taught as though someday I would end up being a 45-year-old white man. And I was never gonna be, I'm 45 now, or 44, 45 now, but I'm never gonna be a white man. And so, and I remember one day in one of my leadership classes, we were talking about something, and I was just like shaking my head the entire time going, nope, I can't do that, I can't do that, I can't talk to people that way. And so I raised my hand, and the one thing about me that everybody realizes is I am a little bit of a troublemaker. That's the personality I was born with. And I know I was born that way because my 2-year-old is that way too, so I know I was born that way. And so I raised my hand and I said, okay, this is good, all fine and well, but what do I do? Because I can't do that, because if I act the way you're teaching me to act right now, I would literally run out of the room. And my professor looked so confused. He just said, what do you mean? And I said, I'm a 26-year-old Asian woman with a funny name. Do you think I can talk to anyone in that way? And he's like, well, yeah. And I go, let me tell you, no. The answer is no. And so that's really when I became very interested in what do I as a young female leader have to do differently? And that's actually when I discovered the field of diversity and inclusion. And so very much like you, I was very intentional. I discovered during the MBA that, there's this field. And I found the one job that existed in the field. It was with a nonprofit. And I set the intention very deliberately. I said, I'm gonna get a job there. I have no background in diversity and inclusion. I have no background in like gender studies. I had nothing, I don't have a PhD, and everybody who worked at this nonprofit had a PhD, but I said, I'm gonna get a job there. And I think I must have called them at least a dozen times. Like the human resources person there, I must have called them a dozen times. And I'm like, hey, I'm this really smart person with an MBA, would you like to hire me? And they were like, no. And so I said, okay. And then I called them again, and I kept calling them, and then it was really interesting, and eventually I think they just got tired of me and they offered me a job. And that's another lesson, like never take no for an answer. It's, you know, if you want something, go after it. You know, and even ensure, like, even to the point where maybe you're a little bit annoying, not a lot annoying, but a little bit annoying is okay. And I got the job, and I've been very fortunate because I've been working in the diversity space for almost 20 years now. And the field itself grew with my career. So that's the really great thing about me. I assumed that I would work in a nonprofit for the rest of my life because I didn't think corporations would ever care about diversity and inclusion. And 20 years on, wow, they actually do, which is amazing, right? So my message to all of you and to all the young women is out there is simply don't take no for an answer. Be willing to ignore people who tell you what you want and what you want to achieve is unachievable, right? And, you know, speak up. And, you know, and I think in a culture like Japanese culture, where politeness and accommodation is considered such an important value. Sometimes like speaking up, sometimes defending yourself, sometimes being a little bit, you know, what would be considered annoying is so counterculture to the way that you've been raised. But I think in a society like this, you do have to figure out, okay, maybe I do have to cross the barrier sometimes versus what I've been taught. I need to act and behave and push forth a little bit stronger than even sometimes you feel comfortable. Yeah.
I would agree. I would just say that it's not easy. Even coming from a Western culture, I'm quite a brave person, and I normally can ask for what I want. But when it comes to your career and something that's really so personal, there's so much at stake that it makes it that much more difficult. And then if you're in a society where women are supposed to act or talk in a certain way, the barriers are even higher. But that's where you can do some preparation. When I'm going into an important meeting, I will still write down my bullet points so that I don't forget what I have to say. And when I'm talking about an important meeting, I'm talking about asking for a promotion or something like that, something that's truly deeply personal and for me. So yeah, I would agree with Bo on that. It's challenging, but it's worth it.
ありがとうございます。本当に自分でこう掴み取るというか主張していくっていうのが大事だっていうお話だったと思います。もちろんねそれがそんなに簡単じゃないことはご存知の上でっていうことだとは思うんですけれども、本当に私もそう思っていて、やっぱりこう自分は何がしたいのかっていうことで、すぐは見つからないかもしれないですけど、それが見つかったらなんかそういうねチャンスが来るのをただただ待っていても来ないかもしれないですよねっていうことで、何かこう見つけたらそれを周りの人にたくさん伝えていくっていうのはすごくなんか重要なんじゃないかなというふうに思いました。じゃあですね、ちょっと、視点を変えてですね、ウーバーとかフェイスブックのプラットフォームの話をお伺いしたいと思います。そのプラットフォームでそのダイバーシティとかインクルージョンっていうのが、具体的にはどのように反映されていたりとか活用されているんでしょうか。お伺いできればと思います。
Yeah, of course. I have one story that I'll tell you, and then I'll talk about some of the other features. We have a VP of one of our product teams who's a woman. Her name is Deb Liu. And she recounted a story of when she first started in Facebook. Not only was she one of the only females in the room, but she was also the only expecting parent. So two things that were a little bit different from everybody else she was with. And she got very excited. She was like, we should really have an I'm expecting status update. And everyone in the room just kind of looked at her a bit blankly like, is that what you think people need? And she was like, yes, this is a momentous occasion in someone's life. You know, this is something we need to tell the world through Facebook. And so she explained to them what she was feeling, and because she was in an inclusive environment where her diverse perspective was listened to and leveraged, they created it. And it was a couple of years later that one of the engineers who was sitting in that team, his wife was expecting for the first time, he said, I get it now. We trusted you at the time, but now I get it. This is such a magical moment. So I think, just by having diversity on teams has an impact on the product. So everything from, different statuses, but one of the things that we've also gotten much, much better at is the LGBTQ plus space. And so what I mean by that is, in the past, your relationship status could be something like married, single, it's complicated. Now it can be so much more than that. You can talk about being in a civil partnership. You can talk about being in a domestic relationship. It's really expanded. In the past as well, you chose your gender, male, female. So binary. Nowadays, you can choose lots of different options. And so I think that by having gay, bisexual, transsexual, you name it, people on your team allows you to understand the rest of the world a little bit better and make changes to your products that really do attract even a wider audience. So those are just a couple of examples.
Fantastic examples. For Uber itself, as I mentioned, our customer population, whether it's on our couriers and our driver partners or the people, the customers who engage on the platform, we represent every aspect of society that you can possibly imagine. So whether you are a member of the LGBTQ community, whether you're male or female, whether you are, ultra rich to barely getting by, whether you're somebody who uses a wheelchair, whether you're somebody who uses a service animal because you're blind or you're deaf, we have all of our customers. And so it's so important for us to be able to create a platform that is inclusive of all of that. And for Uber, I know that here within Japan, our Uber Eats platform is much larger than our taxi or rides platform, but in some of our other markets, it's sort of the reverse, where our rides platform is much larger. And I think historically, we were designing, products and services. It was a bunch of product managers sitting in San Francisco, California, thinking about what everybody else in the rest of the world needed. And so when we first started our platform, we didn't necessarily think about, for example, how do people with disabilities use our platform, right? How do people with, service animals, or how do people in wheelchairs in particular use our platform? And so we didn't do a very good job when we first started. But now, we have an entire advisory council of NGOs that represent the disability community, and they're constantly giving us feedback saying, here's what you can do to increase inclusion on your platform for people with disabilities. So now in several of our marketplaces in North America, as well as our European market, we actually have a vehicle option where if you call one of our cars, you can actually get a wheelchair accessible vehicle. You can indicate, I want a wheelchair accessible vehicle, and so you can get that. And this has been, I speak to a lot of people with disabilities, and they said, knowing that there's a platform where I can reliably get transportation, where I don't have to rely on my family and friends, where I don't have to rely on very, irregular services that the city or the government provides, has been transformative. And that's just one population. If we think about another population, you mentioned the LGBT community. As I said, safety is a really big part of what our platform represents. And if you're somebody who is a racial minority in a country, or if you're somebody who, we call them, in the West, we call them gender non-binary, who doesn't present as either traditionally female or male, but present as something else, there could be a lot of safety issues on any kind of transportation, right? You can be discriminated against. There can be even violence against you. And one thing that we really do as part of the work around safety and inclusion on our platform is actually to educate all of our driver partners on on non-discrimination, right? So if you do get a passenger who is gender non-binary, you can't discriminate against them. And so that's why that diversity and inclusion is so important in our workforce, because we have to be able to think about what our customers are going to be experiencing and then build that into the platform.
なるほど、本当に想像なんか超えたことが行われているんだなって全然知らなかったんですけど、本当にでもねプロフィールとか確かに変わってますよねとかね、いろんな場面で生かされているんだなっていうのがすごく分かりました。そうですね、最後にですねお二人のパーソナルな話に多分皆さんもご関心が高いんじゃないかなと思うので、ちょっとそこを重点的にお伺いできればと思うんですけれども、2人もお子さんが2人ずつねいらっしゃるということで、どのようにですねこの、プライベートライフとこの今のお忙しいお仕事っていうのを、両立させてきたのかっていうところをお伺いしたいと思います。日本の、ね、私たちもすごくこの点については悩むことも多いですよねっていうことで、具体的にこんなようなことをしてきたみたいな話とか、お子さんとかパートナーの方とのエピソードなんかをシェアしていただければ幸いです。お願いします。
Happy to, yeah. So first of all, I should say, get rid of the notion of work-life balance. There's no balance. I like to use the term, and everybody uses different terms, but I like to use the term work-life integration, meaning I'm able to integrate my work with also having a family, and sometimes work will take priority, right? For example, every time I travel away from my family, I'm 100% dedicating that week or those days to work and not at all to my children. But vice versa, I have the flexibility. I'm very fortunate to work. I've always worked in companies with a lot of flexibility. So when I have to prioritize my kids or my family or my husband, I do that, right? And so for me, it's about not even trying for balance, but trying for just when I have to be with my family, when I have to be at work, I can do that kind of flexing back and forth. But really, at the end of the day, when it comes to any working parent, it's all about the partnership you have, and it's all about the community of support that you build. And I always tell every woman, I tell every young person, if you want to have a successful career and also have a family as well, be really smart about who you choose to partner with. Right? Whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, be really smart about who you partner with. Because for me, my career and my life would not be possible without my husband. And so when I was in my 20s and I was just dating and I was, getting to meet people, I always made sure that I married a feminist. That was like a key thing. I had tests along the way. Like by date 3, I had to know if they were a feminist or not. And if they weren't, I would just let them go, even if, we got along very well. And nothing that I do would be possible without my husband. And he himself has, his name is John. He himself has a very important career. But he has always said, he goes, your career has immense potential, right? And so he goes, let me be the primary parent. Let me be the one so that to make sure this life is working, so that you can go and do and be as awesome as you have to be. And I always say, I was so smart to marry him. I was so smart to marry him. But really, truly, if you think about your own life, it's not done by yourself. You can't make that work-life integration happen by yourself. You need a partner to be able to do it. And I don't want to assume that everybody's going to get married and everyone's going to do that. We all have there's a diversity of different kind of family styles. But whatever you do, know that the only way to achieve it is to build a community of support around you.
Yeah, just on the whole community aspect, yeah. I think that was so important for me because I'm very far away from my family. I'm very far away from my husband's family as well. So building that community was essential. I think 2 things really helped me. One was actually Facebook. The fact that, and this is before I even joined the company, but there was a Facebook group for new moms in Singapore where you could literally just ask mothers anything. And as a first-time mother, that was so important. You could do it at 2 o'clock in the morning when you were breastfeeding and you just didn't know what to do. And you would get an outpouring of support from mothers who were going through something similar and could offer some tips and advice, or even just, I'm there for you. So it didn't feel so lonely. The second piece was forming a community once I got back to work. One of the things I realized was there wasn't a huge amount of support for women coming back. A lot of things existed. they were just really difficult to find. And so one of the first things I did was set up a parents community within work. At the time I was still in Google, and that Google parents community is still around today. And my son is now almost 7, so 7 years ago. And what that really helped was I got to find who were the other parents in the office, and I got to find out like what were the different types of challenges that they were facing based on how old their children were. And we started to develop things like inviting in different guest speakers so that we could, learn for what people wanted. But then it was also just to have those occasional lunches with other parents where you could just moan about being a working parent. Like sometimes that's all you need, just somebody else who's going to listen to you and hear your pain. And in addition to getting that support, what was also awesome was my network grew enormously. Suddenly, I was connecting with people on a different level in completely different departments and groups. And those networks are invaluable in your career. So in addition to being really great personally, it was also a really good move professionally as well.
I'm glad you brought up networks because I think it is so important. And it reminded me of a story that actually our Women of Uber network here in Japan actually shared with me. So we have several of these networks at Uber, and about 6 or 7 months ago I was sitting with a group of our women in our Tokyo office, and I was talking to them about what can Uber do differently to make it possible, to balance, not balance, but to integrate that work and that life. And it was really interesting because they actually said, oh no, Uber's great. They're like, you guys are so supportive of us as working mothers. You're very supportive of us as women. And actually, we had several mothers in that group. They were like, I would actually love to have more children. But they said, it's not Uber. They go, it's the other companies. Because they said, most of them had one child, and they said, I would love to have a second child or even a third child, but my husband works for a traditional Japanese company, and he can't be flexible. He can't take time off in order to support me and my career, even though he wants it. He wants it as much as I do, right? But his company is not doing anything. So they said to me, they're like, can Uber talk to other companies? Can they create a consortium of Japanese companies that they could advise? Because that would be really, important. Because at Uber, one of the things we do, and I know Facebook has a very similar policy, when a parent, whether it's male or female, has a child, you get 18 weeks of fully paid leave. So men can take up to 18 weeks of leave when they have a child. And in our men, when we first rolled out this program, the men were really, I can take this? Right? I can take this leave. And we're like, yes, you can take it. Actually, we want you to take it. And one of the ways that we ensured that we were getting balanced, leave is actually, I actually track who takes leave. And I've actually found that men and women take about the same amount of leave. But the more interesting thing that happened by having this equitable policy is that men are now saying, I don't know what's going to happen to my career now that I've had a child. And that used to be historically a conversation only women had, right? But now we're having the men have it. But actually, by making this topic gender neutral, by eliminating the gender, it actually creates more opportunity for women, because our men now know the reality, and so they naturally become champions for change, and they start to remove some of the barriers that have historically been there. They have started removing the biases and the discrimination that used to be there for working parents. And so when you start to find that, when you start to make your policies more equitable and you start to change the system, not the people, that's when change really accelerates.
大変面白いお話だなと思ってお伺いしました。自分の会社だけじゃなくてパートナーの方もちゃんとフレキシブルじゃないとトータルとしてはねフレキシブルじゃないとか、そのパートナーとかコミュニティをどう巻き込むかとか、そこを選ぶ段階から始まってるんだよみたいなところがすごく確かになっていうふうに思いました。でもうちょっと会社でこのようななんていうんですかね、仕事と家庭生活の両立についてどんなような取り組みをしているのかなっていうのをお伺いできればと思うんですけれども、特に日本のよくある会社だと制度は充実しているんだけれど、なんかこう なんていうんですか、使いづらい雰囲気があるとか、例えば育休とか、時短みたいな制度に関してもあるんだけれども、それを使うとちょっと他の人の目がみたいなところとか、それこそ昇進できるのかなみたいなところがあって、実際には使われないとかっていうことが多かったりするんですけれども、そのあたりってどういうふうに取り組んでらっしゃるのかとか、なんかそういう具体的なヒントにつながるような取り組みとかがあればお伺いできればと思います。
I think we hear that a lot, and I think people who move from traditional Japanese companies into the technology companies don't really believe it at first. You get people looking at you like, yeah, you say that, but I'm sorry, I can't do that. And it takes a long time to almost, I don't know if this is the right word, but to recondition people that actually it's acceptable. And one of the ways that we try to ensure that people understand that it's acceptable is we ask our managers to do the same. So if we say, for example, that you can be flexible about where you work, we focus on impact. So as long as you're having that impact, whether it's during office hours, outside of office hours, whatever works for you and your family, we ask managers to do the same. And so we ask managers to lead by example. So we ask them, if you have an appointment with your child or with whomever, you leave the office at 5 o'clock. And people need to see you leave so that they can actually believe, oh, I can do this too. And beyond just seeing is believing, it's also talking about it. So that's one of the things we try to encourage managers to do, is actually talk about this. What are the norms? What are the inclusion norms on our team? How do we want to set this up? How do we want to talk about this on a regular basis? And I know that's something we did in Google Japan as well. And so we have a lot of these employee resource groups in addition to manager training to really get people to understand that how you do your work is really up to you, as long as you're still having the impact and it's not negatively impacting the community that you're working with.
Yeah. I think, your example that you provided is, to ensure that the leaders, the managers are role modeling, right? And it speaks to a cultural aspect that is so important here in Japan, which is the hierarchy within organizations, right? It's so hard if you're mid-level or junior to be able to escalate some of these conversations in these deeply hierarchical Japanese cultures. And so that's why I think it is so important in Japan to get the leaders to change first, almost, and to lead by example. So we try to do very similar things as well, but even simple things like the language you use in an office is so important. So for Uber around the world globally, English is our language of record. So even here in Japan, because we actually have a lot of expats in our office and we have a lot of locals in our office, we do tend to use English a lot, and that helps to break down a lot of the hierarchy, because you've suddenly eliminated things that are like hierarchical honorifics, like it's not Yukiko-san, it's just Yukiko, right? And that in people's minds mentally makes you feel like, okay, I can maybe escalate. I can maybe have a conversation that I wouldn't have normally with this very senior Japanese person. I can have that in English because we're all the same when it comes to speaking English, right? So things along those lines, and how do you create an environment where you remove some of that hierarchy within, especially within Japan, I think is so important. The other thing I think is, from a Japanese cultural perspective, because Japanese culture is so communitarian, it's so community-based, it's about my identity as an individual is subordinate to the identity of the group, right? Doing things together as groups of employees will have more impact than individual. And I think this is really important with any kind of change initiative. When you are trying to change not only in a company, but you're really challenging social norms, really entrenched social norms that are there, you will always get further as individuals, as groups versus individuals. There's a saying, I don't know if they have it here, but they said, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. Right? And I think here in Japan, that is the most important thing. If your organization doesn't have employee resource groups to help advance your careers, create one. right? And if the company's like, you can't have one, just start going up to women going, I'm thinking of creating a group. Do you want to join that group? Because if 20 women or 30 women or 40 or 50 women plus 10 male allies all got together saying this needs to change, they will listen to that group more than they will listen to you, one person complaining about the current situations. So I think that that's one way that we can really start to change things, and I would recommend for all of you as you go back into your career, think about the power of the community that you can build in your company. All right, and then if you can, with that, if you have that power of community, and then even if you can find one leader who will listen to you, and if that one leader who listens to you then will be your champion, that can completely change the entire conversation.
ありがとうございます。先ほどミシェルさんがおっしゃってたマネージャーが率先してロールモデルになるっていうところが大事だってお話だったんですけど、もしかしたらフェイスブックとかウーバーは割と年齢層が同じぐらいだったり若い人がマネージャーだったりするのかなと思ってはいるんですが、多くの日本企業だとそのあたりの方々が結構年齢層が高めでなんていうかその方たちの意識をそういうふうに持っていくっていうところが一番難しいっていう問題があって、やっぱりそのダイバーシティとかの重要性とか、働き方を柔軟にするっていうところに関してその層が結構納得感が持ててないとなかなかロールモデルとか自分から率先してっていうふうにならないかなって思うんですけれども、そのあたりについては何か会社として取り組んでいることとか、あるいは意識していることとかっていうのはありますか？
I think a lot of our companies try to be first movers in everything they do, not only in the product and the services that we offer, but also in what we're doing in the HR space. So a lot of people, when you talk about diversity and inclusion, they want to look to the Googles, the Facebooks, the Ubers. What are they doing and how can we copy? And so that's why a lot of the technology companies start to open source some of the HR policies. So equal parental leave, as an example, is now pretty common across all of the technology industry. It's across the 3 companies we just mentioned, but it's also in places like Netflix, Microsoft, etc. So there's a lot of companies who look to our companies to see what's happening. And I think that's slowly happening here in Japan too. Maybe not to the same degree or speed, but people are starting to go, oh gosh, these companies are coming in and they're doing something a little bit different, and they're able to attract really good talent. So is there anything we can learn? And so, yes, I think it's very, very hard to change mindsets. It's very, very hard to change hierarchy and culture. But I do think that there are some companies who are at least willing and open to hear what our companies are doing. And they often ask us to come and talk about some of our policies. And I think it's to learn and create awareness amongst their own management so that small changes can happen. But it is very, very slow. So if anyone is looking for their company to change tomorrow, it's probably not going to happen. But I do think that more and more companies are listening, and they're looking to our companies to see what we're doing, because they know we're first movers in the space.
And I think, when you are looking for your next career opportunity, don't just look at the job, but look at the culture of the company. That's so important. Oftentimes we just look at the job and think, I just want that job. But don't just go, I want that job. You go, I want to work in that company, because that company has women as leaders, right? That company has equitable leave for both genders. That company has somebody in a role at the global level or even at the regional level who is supposed to look at things like diversity and inclusion. Those are signals to you, right? Be very, I've been accused in the past of being very overly intentional about what I do. But it's because I am so overly intentional, right, that I am where I am. When I was dating in my 20s and early 30s, my mom was like, oh, you have so many tests for them, so many tests for your boyfriends. And I go, well, yeah, because I know what I want from my career, and I know what kind of person I want to be partnered with, and I'm not going to settle for anything but like what somebody who's going to support me. And sure enough, I found somebody, and that's what allows me to be able to leave for 6 days out of the week and come here to Japan and Korea and leave my 8-year-old and my 2-year-old with my husband, who also is a professor at a university. So be really intentional. Like sometimes I think you don't have to know where you want to go, but you have to at least know what like the next step is going to be, and like be intentional about that.
ね、テック業界に限らずこれは本当にキャリアを築く上でとか会社を選ぶ上ですごく重要な視点だなと思います。その会社の文化がどうなっているのかとか、制度だけじゃなくて制度は充実してるけど実際のところどうなんだとか、そういうところってすごく、ね、重要なのでそういうところを見ていくっていうところが大事だという話だったかなというふうに思います。はい、それではですね、最後にですね、ここにいらっしゃる働く女性に向けて、特にIT 業界で働くこととかについて何かこうメッセージをいただければと思います。
I think, like Bo just said, you've got to find a company whose culture matches to your values. Any advice I would give for anyone going into any company, not even the technology industry, is try to meet as many people from that company as possible. Just keep asking to see somebody else, I know that LinkedIn is not used very widely here, but whatever your equivalent is, like get connected to people in that company and go for a coffee. Ask them about the culture. Say, look, I've read these things, but what is it actually like in reality? And that's a great way to explore as well, once you're starting to talk about the culture, what different types of roles are out there? Because there may be only one on the jobs board, but there could be something else that comes up later on. And because you've met them and maybe made a good impression, they'll call you up the next time and say, hey, something has just opened up. I think it would be really great for you. And one of the things that I always say is great about the technology space is we make most of our hires through referrals. And so by making those connections, having that coffee, exploring the culture, you could potentially get someone reaching out to you and referring you to a job someday. And the final thing there is just to remember that, yes, we're technology companies, but majority of our jobs, especially here in Asia Pacific, are not engineering roles. Like Bo mentioned earlier, it's HR, it's marketing, it's sales, it's partnerships, you name it. There's loads of other jobs out there that are not specifically engineering.
And I think, and to add to that, really good advice, like once you get your foot in the door within a tech company, we all believe, Facebook, Uber, Google, Netflix, you name it, we all believe in like internal mobility, right? We don't expect people are going to be in their roles for too long, because we have a very high potential young mobile workforce that wants to experience lots of different things. So we encourage people, after they join, after a period of time, to like actually seek other opportunities. So if you join, in the tech sector, like you will have immense opportunity to move into other aspects of the business. So that's one thing I want you to keep in mind. And I think, Michelle, you provided such great like tactical advice about careers in the tech sector. I will give you like slightly more esoteric advice. And I give you this advice. It's nothing that we talked about, but it's something like sitting here in front of all of you, actually getting to see all of you, right? It just kind of came to mind. So the advice I would give you is, don't be afraid to take up space. I think in a society, I am of Korean descent, and a lot of the gender norms that you're taught in whether it's Korea or Japan are very similar. And so growing up in a very East Asian household, like Korean household, but in an American context was very confusing for me, because I was told one thing about what it means to be a woman in my house, and I was told to be a completely different thing when I was outside of my house. And so I was like, which one is it, right? And ultimately for me, I determined that like I was going to go slightly more the American route when it came to like what it meant for me to be a woman. And what that meant was, and I had to reject some of the things that I learned about what it means to be a woman from a Korean perspective. And part of what that was I had to learn to like be comfortable with being big, right? And whether it's physically big, I'm like quite tall for a female of Korean descent, but like I had to be comfortable with like my bigness. I had to be comfortable with like the loudness of my voice. I had to be comfortable with the fact that like my ideas matter. I had to be comfortable with the fact that like my voice matters. And I think that Korean Japanese culture tends to tell women smaller is better. Don't try to take up as little space as possible. Be as skinny as you possibly can be. Make your voice as cute as you possibly can make it. You know, be small because that's the right way to be a woman. And it'll be scary, and you will have to turn off some of that advice you've heard for 20, 30, 40 years of your life. But I will tell you, like, try to figure out a way, even if it's just once a day, to take up space. Whether it's like just talking louder than you typically talk, or like standing taller than you're typically, right? Or like sharing an opinion that you have where you disagree with somebody in a room, but you're like, oh, I don't want to share it, but you know it's your opinion, the right one, right? Build that courage. So like learn to take up space and be comfortable with taking up space. That one comfort, that switch, can transform the way that you navigate your career going forward.
どうも大変貴重なお話と本当に勇気づけられるメッセージでした。本当にどうもありがとうございました。多分そろそろ時間かなと思うんですけれども、以上でこちらのセッションは終了とさせていただきます。
はい、それではそろそろお時間となりました。ボーさん、ミシェルさん、そして丹羽さん、本日は大変貴重なお話をありがとうございました。ではどうぞ前へお越しください。それでは皆様、今一度ご登壇いただきました皆さんに大きな拍手をお送りください。本日は誠にありがとうございました。さて続いてのコンテンツは16時よりドリーム静香さんとヨガインストラクターの青井名取さんをお招きしてエルガールプレゼンツヨガンスで叶えるしなやかボディ&マインドトーク with ドリーム静香をお送りいたします。なおお座席がないフリースペースでのご鑑賞となります。ステージが見やすいお好きなところでお配りいたしますミニ座布団を使ってお座りください。また本日のプログラムは完全入れ替え制となります。あらかじめご了承ください。さあそしてエルジャパンのインスタグラムに行きますと 30th アニバーサリーのフェイスフィルターがもらえます。ぜひ皆さんエルジャパンインスタグラムで入手してください。それではただいま入れ替えを行っております。皆様お忘れ物のないようご注意ください。ありがとうございました。
qui a accueilli les princes britanniques. Aujourd'hui, elle est la ville des bijoux qui attire, de par le monde, pour ses pierres précieuses. Les gemmes y ont dormi pendant des dizaines de millions d'années, dans l'attente d'être réveillées un jour par les artisans de Jaipur. Nous avons recherché la pierre précieuse, naturellement bien coupée, et nous avons considéré son inclusion comme un caractère précieux, en dégageant au maximum sa beauté propre, ce qui livre la forme éternelle de la terre aux femmes comme un bijou. C'est là notre promesse. Les bijoux d'Arti Daoud sont miraculeusement produits par la rencontre entre temps et nature, ainsi que par des contingences. Ils embellissent la peau des femmes, naturelle et brillante.